Hi everybody tuning in. I'll give you another minute or so to get comfortable, get cozy, settle in, and then we'll go explore this beautiful beach here at Manchester State Park. It is a perfect day for our beach walk. We've got a really nice low tide. I think it's a negative 2.2 foot tide right about now. So we'll explore this intertidal area. And we're out here at the beach. There's hardly anyone out at the park. Everybody must be at home with their dads, but lucky for me, my dad is hanging out at the beach with us. Everybody say hi to my dad, Jim. He's actually a big reason why I have this job at Harbor WildWatch, because as a kid, when we would be at the beach, like this kid here, my kid Eli, he would answer all my questions. So, you know, say thanks to your dad for all the questions that you've asked over the years, and maybe show him some love today. It is a gorgeous day, and this is one of my favorite places to be because it's the rare place in our South Sound kind of area that has actual true tide pools. Areas of rock that are kind of depressed like this, and they collect water. And what's really, yeah, when the waves come, they fill it, right, Eli? And these tide pools can be homes and kind of a shelter for a lot of creatures that have some pretty nice adaptations to living in this area. So go ahead and pop in the comments if you're where you're watching from, maybe who you're watching with. That's always fun for us to see.
Speaking of popping.
Of popping, oh yeah, I said pop into the comments. Yeah, what do you notice is popping here, Eli?
Why do they pop?
Ooh, that's a great question. So you're noticing the rockweed here. This is fucus rockweed. It gets called bladderwort and lots of other names, but I know it as fucus, and it gets these kind of swollen tips to it when they're ready to kind of release spores. And if you find some of this that's kind of washed up, it is fun to pop. And it's got almost an aloe vera like gel on the inside, so I can kind of squish that out. It's very, very slippery
and sticky.
And sticky. You like that, huh, Eli? All right, so we're going to walk along, see if we can find some creatures in these tide pools that might be sheltering and kind of waiting the tide. We've got 2 high tides and 2 low tides of differing heights here in the Pacific Northwest, which means we have a lot of opportunity for the tide to be gone from the shoreline. And these animals that live here have really great adaptations for surviving that. Now, one really easy adaptation is to find a tide pool and claim it and kind of save yourself in this water because you won't dry out, which is great. But tide pools usually have limited oxygen reserves. And so towards the end of the low tide, a lot of the animals that are in these tide pools get a little bit, a little sad waiting for the oxygen to return. What do you see, Eli? Oh, a little fish. Good eyes. I can't believe that you can even see that. Yep. But let's see if I can point right just underneath my finger there is a little tide pool sculpin. Go ahead and see if he'll move for us. There he goes. Tide pool sculpins are really, actually there's a lot of stuff right here. Let's just sit and talk. Tide pool sculpins are really, really cool creatures to see. They're really well adapted to this tide pool life. They don't have a swim bladder. So when they're not swimming, they are sitting on the bottom. There's actually quite a few tide pool sculpins you can see them moving a little bit. And they get that name because they really do like to shelter here. It's a good spot for them to wait the tide. There's several of them. They kind of look like little tadpoles, don't they? They're not related to tadpoles. They are a true fish. Also in here, I'm noticing some little shrimp. And these are green Sitka shrimp. And they are really, I'm going to try to catch one for you, maybe. They are really clear. Oh, no, I missed my chance. I'll find another one. Oh, here we go. So the way I like to catch them is to kind of try to get some water in my hand, and oftentimes the shrimp will be stuck behind in my little puddle. But they are kind of a clear little shrimp, very small, and they are hard to find because they're really well camouflaged. There's a bunch of little fish and shrimp and things in this tide pool.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the ways to stop being eaten if you're a sea creature is camouflage.
Yeah, camouflage is a great adaptation, and animals in here.
Even predators have that.
Even predators have that too. Yeah, it works for predators and prey.
Yeah. Prey use it to hide so they can't be seen by predators and get eaten.
What's a predator use it for?
Predators use it to hide so the prey doesn't know they're here and then strike.
And then strike, yeah. All right, so speaking of kind of cryptic animals or animals that are hard to see, I noticed down in here we've got a chitin. Let me try to block that glare a little bit so we can see it. So right here is a primitive snail-like animal. It's got 8 plates along their back, and then they're kind of housed in this girdle on the side. So this one is a woody chitin, and they're a little obvious. There are some other chitins, though, that are significantly more camouflaged. Here is a hairy chitin, and you can't even tell. I'll see if I can find a hairy chitin that's a little more obvious, because there are a lot of them, and when you finally start seeing them on the beach, you realize they're really everywhere. So we're gonna transition down a little bit. Ooh, here's a cool thing to talk about.
Giant crab.
It's a giant crab, and I can tell that it's super dead, but we can still learn a little bit from it. So a second ago, nope, found a rock. A second ago, I walked over this little crab molt, and it looks like a dead crab, but here's the difference between a dead crab and just a crab molt. So a dead crab will stink. So I wish you guys all at home had smell-o-vision a little bit, because this is quite the pungent crab. I also noticed that there's this dark black on that. That's not present when the crab is alive, and that color is from bacteria that's growing and eating the dead animal. A molt, though.
Scavengers don't hunt for living creatures. They find dead ones and eat those.
Exactly right.
Exactamundo.
Okay. So this molt here, you'll notice it doesn't have any of the black on it. It doesn't smell. If you were here with me in person, I would make you take a whiff of this. And one thing I can notice is if I pop the back of it, it lifts open like a treasure chest. And it's kind of got this hinge to it. That tells us that the crab is not inside anymore. The crab is backed out of their shell, and is able to grow. Oh, and here's another shout out to a dad. There's my husband, Jen, hanging out here at the beach, doing his dad thing while we explore the shore and look for cool creatures. All right, and this is the most difficult part of this entire adventure, and I apologize, is that I have to navigate this very slippery, notice all this algae, very slippery beach, and try not to fall on my butt. As much as I know you guys would love to see that, and it'd probably get us a ton of views, I'm just really not willing to do that if I can help it. So I'm gonna quickly kind of navigate across this mushy section of the beach so that we can get out to the shore where the water is farthest out. So as I'm walking, you might be able to see them. There's a lot of little crabs and things that are kind of scampering away from me as they see me. An overcast day like today is perfect for navigating the intertidal zone if you've got a low tide, because it's a lot easier for these creatures to stay cool and moist if there's not really hot sun beating on them. And so quite often you'll see more creatures on kind of an inclement day. Maybe not our favorite day to be out, but I'm surprised there's not more people here. Wow, you can actually see the tide leaving. Eli, look at the water. Can you see that? I hope you guys at home can see that you can actually just watch the tide pulling it from the beach. What a cool phenomenon to see. Eventually, yeah, we'll start to see the tide coming back in a little bit.
Yeah.
So here at the shoreline at Manchester, there is a lot of these clay banks. That's kind of what I'm walking on now. A lot of them have holes in them. So like this, and quite often those holes are filled with animals that take advantage of that habitat. So lots of crabs and things will hide into those holes, but those holes are originally formed by a clam called a pittock, which has a shell that's almost like a drill that can kind of shake and move into that habitat. Now, this is a really common thing to have happen at Manchester. This is the ferry boat waves. So we just missed the fast ferry going by a moment ago, and the waves from that will travel to the shore and give us a little bit of noise for the moment, but hopefully once that's done with, we can keep looking on our search for interesting creatures. This is not a creature, but this is one of my favorite things to find at this beach. This is iridescent kelp. It's also called rainbow kelp, and it's
I call it sea taffy.
sea taffy, huh?
Because to me it looks like taffy.
Okay. It's really rainbowy and blue. I hope this is showing up on the camera. It's hard to see it. In person, it's really obvious, but
so obvious. I can see it.
You can see it. Well, I'm talking to the people at home, if they can see the blue. So this is a red algae, and the blue is common on other algae. This is oh, here's something cool. Eli, check it out. There is right here there is a spaghetti tube worm. So
spaghetti.
it is a little bit like spaghetti noodles. So these are the feeding tentacles of a polychaete worm called a spaghetti worm, and they have this cool tube. And the tube that they have, they secrete it around themselves. And sometimes when here we go. Here's the tube right here. So they secrete a tube and they make it full of sand. So here you can see the tube here. Let's see if we can get to the mouth of it and see maybe the animal that's at home in here. No, it looks like it's open on this end here. All right. So a cool thing to find. Now, during the low tide, this spaghetti worm is going to be reaching those tentacles out. They're very, very stretchy, and they'll grab detritus, which is basically a sciencey word for dead stuff or poop or organic material that's just hanging around in the environment. So really kind of a neat find. And their tentacles are really stretchy, so I wouldn't be surprised if those tentacles from this one little worm could stretch maybe 18 inches, maybe 24 inches. They're really, really stretchy and sticky to be able to capture food. So thanks to everybody who is tuning in. I see my Aunt Marcia's watching. Shout out to you. Oh, here's a cool find. All right. Oh, we've got Mary watching too, and Sherry. Oh, where is the worm? Oh yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that I can find it again. I can show you the tube of the animal that I did see. This is the one of those spaghetti worm tubes. The guy I was looking at. Okay, here we go. Those little teeny tiny white threads are the worm. Oh, and Macy's asking, can worms go under the water? And certain species of worms definitely can. These are all sea worms. Most of them are polychaetes, but we do have some flatworms and ribbon worms here at this beach, and they can all thrive underneath the water, and they can breathe through their skin. So as long as they're wet during the low tide, they're just fine. All right, here we go. I happened to find just a couple of little snail shells here. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe a few more here. And this is not really a habitat that I would expect to find a snail. It's kind of mushy. There's a lot of algae. There's not a lot of smooth surface for them to crawl on, which tells me that these are probably hermit crabs instead. So if we take a look, we can see this hermit crab inside this shell. So hermit crabs are not quite true crabs. They're kind of close cousins. They've got long antennae. They usually have one pincher that's bigger than the other, but their main key characteristic is they have a soft abdomen that's kind of coils into a mollusk shell. So they prefer snails like these. These are dogwinkle snails. And what's really great about it is they have evolved right alongside these snails, so their proportions match the shells in their environment perfectly. So this is a reason why we don't recommend that people take shells from the beach. One, because I'm at a state park right now, I'm at Manchester State Park, and that would be against the rules to be collecting or taking natural substances. So we don't want to take rocks or shells or things like that from the beach because the animals will use those for habitat. But in this particular case, if there's not enough of these snail shells, then the hermit crabs are unprotected on their backside, and they're really vulnerable to being eaten. And the name hermit crab is always kind of makes me laugh because you think of a hermit as somebody who's far away from other people and doesn't want to interact. But hermit crabs are quite social. And usually anytime I find one hermit crab, I find more hermit crabs. So you can see those long antennae there. And those help the animal to be able to feel things behind their shell, which is pretty important. If you're an animal who's got a big, heavy, bulky house, you want to be able to feel if somebody's coming up behind you. They have eyes on stalks as well, which help give them a better vantage point. And yeah, I totally agree, Jamie. I think they are pretty cute. Love these little guys. They're such a fun find. If you ever come across them, just sit and watch them for a minute because they really do have, they're kind of crabby and they'll interact with other crab species. So I'm just gonna kind of walk around carefully, see what other things that I can see now that the tide is pretty low. One indication that I'm at about the lowest point of the tide is this red algae that you can see here. Oh, there's my friend Susan tuning in. Hi, Susan. Hi, Meryl and Frank. Thanks for tuning in too, guys. We've got this red algae. This is one of the coolest and most interesting textures that you can find on the beach. This is Turkish towel, is its name. And it's a red algae, and it's very springy and elastic, and it just makes this great kind of sound, and it's fun. Kids love to touch it. When it's really young, it's a little bit more smooth, so this is a younger piece of it. And then when it gets really, really old and mature, it gets almost these little frills and branches on here, so love it. So if you're watching from home and you're thinking, wow, this is so much fun, I wish I could do this, we are hopeful that we'll be maybe able to get some programs up and running this summer. But in the meantime, if you would like to support Harbor WildWatch or you want to get some kind of inside scoop and information, we do have a steward club for people who are wanting to support us financially. That steward club, you get some pretty cool perks, and you can always find information about that on our website. Oh, Evelyn wants to know, how big do those hermit crabs get? And for that species that we just saw, they're really limited by the size of the shells of the snails that are in this area. So the dogwinkle shell is kind of a medium-sized shell. There's not much in between a dogwinkle and, say, like a large moon snail. So the dogwinkle shells tend to be the maximum size for that crab. There are bigger hermit crabs out in deeper water out there, like the black-eyed hermit crab, and they do use moon snail shells. And so they can get about as big as a baseball, which is really kind of a cool thing. Here's another one right here, just hanging out right at my feet. Another type of hermit crab. I believe this is a grainy hand hermit, or maybe even a bearing hermit crab. You look for subtle differences in like what color the antenna is. This is an orange antennaed animal with kind of a bluish color to his pinchers. So I think that is a bearing hermit crab. And then here's a cool find that most people wouldn't get excited about. This, like, almost looks like a loogie. This is eggs of a type of slug called a sea lemon, or this could be leopard dorid. So there's my thumb for scale. We're looking at kind of a ribbon of eggs with teeny tiny little dots. And each little tiny dot is gonna hatch and become one sea slug. And I'm hopeful that we'll find some sea slugs today. Carefully, Rachel, gosh, don't fall. I know you guys would crack up and share this video, but I don't have to fall for you to be able to share the video. You can share it anytime. If you know somebody who'd want to watch this, it'll be available for broadcast after, and we'll also throw it up on our YouTube channel. So you can, we love all the support that we've been getting, all the likes and shares and recommendations that we're getting. If you're Facebook savvy and you want to leave us a recommendation on our page, we would love that. Helps us secure further funding and that sort of thing. Ooh, here's a cool algae. This pink that you see is a kind of a crustose algae. It grows encrusting along the ground. This is a red algae species, but it's different from the kind of big leafy reds. This one has calcium in its kind of makeup, and so it's really good at, it's almost like a glue that cements things down. And this is kind of interesting because there just happens to be a little, looks like a jingle shell, which is a type of mollusk, kind of like a clam that's just hanging out there. And the algae just grew right over it. So you can tell that's kind of a long process. Oh, sea slugs and sea cucumbers, are they different? Yeah, they totally are. So sea cucumbers, and I'm hopeful just around the bend over there, kind of by those big rocks, I should be able to see some sea cucumbers to show you. But they have suction cup tube feet that they can anchor in. They have feeding tentacles that they can pull food in. And the sea slugs are more closely related to snails and like your garden slugs compared to the echinoderms, the spiny skinned animals. So they're not very distantly related whatsoever. Okay, let's see what we can find. They do look pretty similar though, so I can understand why you would think maybe that they're related. Ooh, here's a cool find. You guys, in all of my, you're not gonna be excited about this, but I'm excited about this. This is a broken piece of a pittock clam. And pittocks are the clams that are making all these holes in the clay here. This is really, really hard clay. I call it clay, I say clay, but it's rock, it's hard. And the pittock clams, this shell, you can see how it grows in two different directions. And that's so the animal can kind of twist and they'll just wedge right down into the rock and carve out a place for themselves to live. And then if we really watch for any amount of time, we'll start to see kind of squirts coming up from clams that are still alive inside those holes. All right, so we're gonna move along. You coming with me, Eli? All right, let's head this direction so we can get to some rocks that we can overturn. Oh, here's a pittock. Wait, time out. Gotta talk about this pittock siphon. So here's the clam itself. This clam, I'm gonna see if I can move this algae off of it so you can see the whole of the siphon. So you can see they've got two holes, one here, one here. Oh, and look, there's a crab hanging out in one of these pittock clam holes. Super cool to see. Oh, Eli, you found a piece of hermit crab. We'll talk about that hermit crab in a second, but I want to talk about the pittock clam here. So this is a clam. When the water comes up, they'll pull water in one side of their body and squirt it out the other side, and they'll extract any plankton that they can find in the water. So this is a species that we are concerned about if there's any sort of contaminants or pollution in our waterways, because the clams, they don't really get to choose what's food and what's not food. So if there's excess fertilizer or there's oil or there's dog poop in their water, that's what they're going to be consuming. So this is an animal that really appreciates really clean, healthy water. So we're always glad when we see lots and lots of clams. And I'm going to give him just a little gentle squirt so that you can see that. All right, Kristen's asking, do different things eat different seaweed types? And yeah, definitely. I was hoping I could find a kelp crab or 30. There's a bunch of them right offshore here. And they eat all kinds of kelp. They kind of prefer the brown algae, but sometimes you'll get an individual that really takes a liking to the Turkish towel. And all seaweeds are edible for humans. If you're going to harvest seaweed, there's a lot of kind of guidelines that you want to follow. You want to make sure that you're not over harvesting, that you're choosing a clean location, a place that doesn't have any contamination and things like that. Ah! I just got squirted by a clam. Oh, I didn't see where it was. I think it's right in here. Oh yeah, there we go. There's a big old clam hole right in there. You can gently stick your finger in and feel the animal inside. Don't squish them hard. Cool, right?
Yeah, to me.
Oh, what was I saying? Okay, so you can harvest seaweed. You want to take the kind of the top third of it, and you need a shellfish harvesting license to be doing. Yeah, it should feel like a gooey duck, Eli, because it's a clam. It's a close relative. Here's another hermit crab, and I know it's a hermit crab and not a snail. because I could see his little hands there. He's just pinching, grabbing on to the holdfast of that kelp, probably taking a nibble himself or herself. Really kind of neat to see. All right, I keep saying we're gonna go fast and move away, and I keep getting distracted.
The difference between a male and female over here.
On a clam? No idea. Ooh, no, you found a sea cucumber. Yeah, that's a sea cucumber. I mean, it's a sea cucumber face. All right, so we've got a sea cucumber face. Don't worry, he's okay. This is really treacherous beach we're walking along. But this bright orange, I'll see if I can block it and get the glare out of the way without falling myself. Goodness. All right, I'll use my head to block so you can see. This is a sea cucumber, and this one's called Cucumaria miniata, I think, and it's the orange sea cucumber for kind of obvious reasons. They're bright orange, and you can see those 5 rows of tube feet. And if we stay here long enough, oh, it looks like he's gonna open up a little bit. We might even get to see the tentacles. They have 5 feeding tentacles that they'll reach out into the water, and they're filter feeders too, just like those clams. So they're grabbing whatever they can around them. Really, really cool.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, you can hear lots of stuff. Little squeaky stuff.
It sounded to me like.
Oh, there's a kelp crab over here. This is what I love coming out here with my family, because I've trained them all to be spotters for me. What do you say, dear? Oh, sure. Just giving me a general area.
He was there.
Okay, so I'm gonna just reach in here and find a kelp crab. How big is he?
His head's about that.
Oh goodness. Okay, so I'm gonna just blindly reach in after a big crab that's very sharp and pokey. Stay tuned. There, found him. Oh, and I nearly dropped my phone. Caught it though. Caught it. I'm gonna hand this to you.
Okay.
See if I can grab the kelp crab. This is a definite, like, I don't recommend doing this unless you're a certified crab wrangler and you have the expertise. This is a good way to get hinged. Nope, that's a rock. Very gingerly picked up that rock. We'll see more. There's a ton of kelp crabs. They're just right off the surface. And as the tide leaves a little bit more, they'll come right back out. So, all right, dry off my hands here. Let's see. Oh, here's a really mature piece of Turkish towel. You can see all the little leaflets on that one. So that's been here a while. Most of the algae and kelp are very seasonal, so they really kind of spring up in the spring. They grow throughout the summer, and as the weather kind of we get less and less sunlight, they die off quite a bit. All right, we're gonna head this way. All right, if anybody's got any questions, go ahead and pop those in the comments. Also, don't forget you can write where you're watching from and maybe how many people are viewing. That's information we're always glad to have. Also, if you've got a favorite beach, why don't you go ahead and pop that in the comments too. I'm here at Manchester State Park in Port Orchard, Washington. This beautiful, overcast, calm Father's Day. All right, so another indication we're on at the lower tide marks is this brown algae. This is called sugar kelp or saccharine kelp. And it's got these kind of 2 rows of bullations, or those 2 kind of wibbly marks there. All right, we're in a good spot here where we can see lots of animals that are living on and underneath rocks. We've got some more ferry waves coming by. I'll try to talk loud. Oh, Mark, thank you so much for tuning in. I miss you. I can't believe you were shorter than me when you joined our program, and now you're like a full-grown man. Kind of weirds me out a little bit, but super glad that you're still able to tune in. Here's one of those sick shrimps right here. Ooh, and a little sick shrimp right here underneath this rock. So I'm only flipping really small rocks that I'm able to lift with one hand, but I lifted this one specifically so that I could show you this red rock crab. who is very red. Just kind of hanging out right here. There's also a black-clawed mud crab. Let's see if I can uncover. All the crabs are hiding from me today. This is a black-clawed mud crab, and this one is gravid, meaning she's got lots and lots of eggs, those little black kind of clusters that you can see there, right there. All right. Oh, somebody's watching from Assateague. Oh my gosh, I am so jealous. That is a bucket list place for me for sure. I've had horses my whole life, and I grew up reading Marguerite Henry's books, Misty of Chincoteague, and I know that tradition very well, so I'm super jealous that that's a great favorite beach. Oh, I spy something cool. All right. Oh, Eli, your teacher, Mrs. Bowles, is watching. What do you want to say? Say hi. Getting a little shy, huh? All right, here's what caught my attention from a couple steps away. This bright orange creature. This is
A sea star?
It is a sea star. This one's called a blood star.
Because it's red.
Because it's red like blood, and they come in every shade that kind of blood comes in there. Bright red. They can be a deep maroon, kind of like a dry blood color. And I've even seen light kind of sherbet orange ones that have kind of a different kind of color on their back. This is a really, really cool one. Sandra's watching from Bremerton, just across the way there. If we could, as the crow flies, you're really close to us in Bremerton there. Port Ludlow hanging out with us. All right, Bonnie Lake. Gosh, I love seeing all the people that would get to hang out with me at the beach today. Here's another sea cucumber. This is also an orange sea cucumber, but this is the more maroon variety. So they kind of, oh, he can totally feel me, maybe even hear me. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, Holly. We miss you guys too. Oh, you got another sea star? Different kind? Same kind? Bigger. All right, let's go check it out. Yeah, here we go. Even more sea cucumbers. Oh, and a big red rock crab. Hello. Hanging out. Yeah, you can see them. If you look under just about all these bigger rocks, Eli, you'll see sea cucumbers. Oh, speaking of sea cucumbers, here's one with the tentacles out. Guys, my camera can't even capture how orange this animal is. This one is just sort of laying kind of open. Oh, and there he goes. He felt me, and he's gonna tuck all the way back inside. Here's the kind of maroon variety and the orange variety.
Whoa.
So cool. Whoa. Oh, here we go. We do have a different.
Mom,
yeah.
are those one of the ones you saw earlier that was orange?
Yeah, same kind, same species.
Wow.
All sea cucumbers.
Yeah, but I saw like tentacles on them with suction cups.
All right, Christina and Kevin watching from Tillamook. Sherry's watching in Kent. We love it. Oh, Tacoma. Yes, I love it. So when our programs open up, you'll have to see if you can come visit us in person. But for now, the digital programs are great, and we love the support, and everyone who shares and likes our videos helps us spread our message of stewardship and show off these really cool creatures. This right here is a leather star. So the leather star gets its name because it feels like wet leather. And with sea stars, because they breathe through their gills on their back, it's kind of important to wet your fingers down, which is pretty easy when you're on the beach in a wet area. You can just touch the ground around you to wet down those fingers. It also cools them off because these are all cold-blooded animals we're experiencing today. So we want to make sure that we're not impacting them negatively, not contributing to their stress that they're under during the low tide. And today's low tide is pretty low, and so the animals that are at the lower end of the tide that are hanging out down here along the shore, they are a little more sensitive. The animals that are way up there at the top, they're used to not having water for hours and hours. They're really tough. They tend to have hard shells, but things like this leather star and the sea cucumbers, they're softer, they're more delicate, and so we want to respect them as best we can and try not to hurt them. If you're interested in learning more about beach etiquette, we've got some really great videos on our YouTube page, as well as some information on our website, harborwildwatch.org, and so you can check that out. But this animal here, such a cool find. They've got some kind of interesting features. They have those tube feet. You can see those, like almost looks like These are like rice-a-roni noodles is what they totally remind me of. And they're powered by water. So out of the tide like this, the sea stars have a hard time moving. They can kind of wiggle a little bit, but really they're using seawater as their blood. And so you can notice right on the top here, see this little orange little disc? That's called the madreporite. And that madreporite or sieve plate is what brings the salt water into their body tissues, and that helps pressurize their body. And the little tiny tube feet, they're almost shaped like a turkey baster at the base. So they have the little squeezy disc that you can pressurize, and that extends the tube. And then they can relax that pressure, and the tube will contract, and they have a little suction cup disc at the end of each one. So I'm gonna lift this one up carefully with my nice wet fingers and flip them over so we can see those tube feet a little bit better, and we can even see their stomach. So right in the center there is the stomach. So sea stars eat by sticking their stomach out of their mouth. So they have this oral hole right in the center, and they squeeze out their stomach and digest almost externally. They kind of liquefy their food and absorb it, and then they kind of come back as well. So Jen is telling me that there's a jelly further down the beach. So I'm gonna place this animal right back where he was, give him a little bit of cover from some seagulls who might be looking for a snack. And I'm gonna make my way down to show you a jelly, which will be really kind of cool. I'm gonna try to keep myself steady, but these are slippery rocks. And trying to talk and walk and not fall, very, very tricky. Don't try this at home, folks. Ooh, lots more of those. Ooh, lots more of those. Orange sea cucumbers. You can see how really feathery they are, how well adapted they are to grabbing teeny bits of food, plankton that are in the water. And we have a lot of plankton eaters, a lot of filter feeders. Oh my goodness, look how many cucumbers there are here. Wow. Crazy to see all those bright, bright orange just hanging out everywhere. Oh, here's a cool guy just hanging out. Red rock crab right under there, kind of tucked underneath that rock. Yeah.
Do you know what all this purple stuff is on the rock?
Yeah, all this purple stuff. Well, there's a couple different things. There's this kind of red algae, that's Turkish towel. Oh, hey, look, another sea star. Always nice to see lots of sea stars out. In 2013, there was a sea star wasting disease that really I would want to say decimate, but it's whatever the opposite of decimate is. Decimate means they killed 1 in 10. In this case, we had about 90% loss in a lot of the sea star species. The leather star seems to be a little bit unaffected, or at least maybe has rebounded and gained some immunity. So they're cool to see. And then Eli, the other thing that you're seeing, this purple on these rocks, is it's a filamentous red algae. It's kind of hairy.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about, that kind of hairy stuff. Yeah, and you can always tell kind of right where you are in the tidal zones by what's growing on the rocks. So up at the higher elevations, we get rockweed, and then we have this kind of Brillo pad algae. Then we get the green algae, and then the red and the brown algae. Oh, and there is the jelly Jen was talking about. Good eyes, dear. Thank you for finding this cool, weird blob. This is a lion's mane jellyfish, one that is either dead or is not long for this world. Jellies do not do well when they bump into things. They are about 97% water and just that little bit of connective tissue that they're made up of. But you can touch it if you're super gentle. So
What if I do
don't.
not gentle?
Well, that'll hurt him.
Oh, if I would just like sting me. Sting.
Well, the stingers are on the underside. So
Yeah,
this
that makes sense.
this
I mean,
jelly
sense. That's sense. Yeah.
does not
Yeah,
make sense.
I know. I know what.
What movie do you know? They talk about the jellies stinging, and the tops don't sting you. Do you remember?
Yep.
What movie is that?
Finding Nemo.
Yeah, Finding Nemo.
They just bounced on
They bounce on the tops because the animal.
But they're pink.
The animal doesn't have stingers on the top surface. They're all on the underside, and this animal really
Would
kind
it
of
sting if
travels
I
like
did
this.
put it under?
It could, yeah. So this species does sting. They're again another plankton eater, so they're capturing a lot of plankton, and there's so much plankton in our water.
I also know a thing about all jellyfish.
Okay, what do you know about all jellyfish?
They eat and P-O-P.
You can say poop. It's all right. It's a sciencey word.
Yeah, poop the same way in the mouth.
Yes, they kind of have a U-shaped digestive system, so they don't really have a separate butt. You're right about that. But jellyfish, being filter feeders, they're able to capture lots of food, and our filter feeders here have so much abundant plankton, in part because we have these tides that are constantly moving the water around and bringing nutrients, and the plankton really grows in the sunlight. Here's some of that beautiful rainbow algae. I'll just keep this on here while I talk about plankton. And then a lot of these invertebrates are what we call broadcast spawners, which means in order for the next generation to form, they don't have like necessarily a mating. They'll just time it with the tides, and everybody releases their eggs and their sperm into the water. What did you find? Ooh, another one of those. And so when they do that and the eggs and the sperm are just drifting out there in the water, it's opportunity for a lot of animals to consume it. And so being a filter feeder in these really productive waters is a great strategy. Another great strategy is to be a scavenger. So a lot of the crabs that we're seeing tucked in here are scavengers. They're taking advantage of animals that are dying, either through seasonally, because a lot of these animals have a shorter lifespan, or because this is a rough place to live and they don't all make it. It's only really the toughest of the tough who are able to survive here and pass on their generation to the next to kind of help create better and stronger and more hardy creatures. And evolution's been doing that for ever. And so we've got animals that are really, really well adapted to living their lives here. Oh yeah, so these rocks that are here, oh, that is a big red rock. I don't know if I can focus on that guy. Cool. All right, I love it. Bry's watching, Kathleen's tuning in, and Lynn, all my friends, I love this. I feel like I get to be at the beach with ya, which I love. Oh, here's a cool find. Oh, that's a sea cauliflower. It's a type of algae. This is a really cool Polychaete worm. I mentioned polychaetes earlier when we were first tuned in and we were talking about the spaghetti tube worm. This is a calcareous tube worm. So they have a hard calcium shell that protects them. And when they're underwater, if you can kind of see it, they have this operculum, this little trap door that seals them in there. But when they come out, they have beautiful red tentacles. And once you notice one, you'll start to see them everywhere. There's one. There's one. They are just all over here. All right. Any other questions? Anybody want to ask a few more things? We're kind of coming almost to the end of the beach where I'll have to turn around. But I want to give you a chance to ask all the things you always wanted to know. That's one of my favorite parts of doing the beach walks for Harbor WildWatch, is I really love hearing all the fun things that maybe you found in the past. If ever you come across a sea creature that you can't identify, or you wish you knew what it was, or you wish you had Harbor WildWatch there, take a photo, or maybe write a really good description or a sketch it. But shoot us a message on our Facebook page. You can also email us as well, info@harborwildwatch.com, and attach those images. And if we can, we'll try to answer your question. So this is quite the thing here. Oh, September's watching. Hi, September. So it's nice to have neighbors tuning in too. I just love it. Somebody was asking about the sea star wasting, that we haven't really heard much about it. It is still a problem. In fact, we're looking right here at a sea star that's experiencing wasting, or had a very unfortunate run-in with a seagull. So I'm noticing there's only 2 arms here. And I'm gonna actually get my fingers nice and wet. I'm gonna see if I can examine a little closer this animal here. See if we can see. Now he's pretty well stuck to this rock, and I don't want to stress him out by trying to really remove him. But I was trying to see, the latest arm that's missing is right here. There should be 5 of them, but he's down to 2. Sometimes that happens because of predation. So gulls quite often will eat a sea star. Why? I have no idea, because that just does not look appetizing to me. This thing is hard as concrete. It's a little bit slimy, and it's not like they have like delicious insides like some other hard-shelled animals. No, I'm talking about one now. I'll come check it out in a second. Is he like a normal looking one? Okay, so I can show you a normal ochre star in a second. But this one, my guess is, because I see some of this white kind of almost mushiness, those are typical lesions that is indicative of that sea star wasting disease. Let's go check out a normal looking ochre star, hopefully unaffected by the disease. We'll carefully try to walk over to you. Eli found it. He's got good eagle eyes. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's a nice healthy looking star. A little bit different color. This species is called the ochre stars, but they, in the South Sound, tend to be purple in color, and they're either a bright, vibrant purple or more of this kind of muted purple, but that's still, still awfully purple. And this one has 5 limbs, just like it should. We've got the skeleton protruding from the skin here. This is how you know that they're in the Echinoderm phylum. That means spiny skinned. And so urchins, sand dollars, sea cucumbers all have that, they're all in that group. Even though the sea cucumbers aren't very spiny, they're still relatives. They have all the kind of similar features of this radial symmetry and the tube feet. And they're all found in salt water exclusively. So really, really cool to see. This one, you can see all the gills, kind of the shiny, slimy section on their back are the gills that they're able to breathe from. Yeah, he's good size, bigger than my hand, but this species, they get quite large, maybe up to 18 inches, especially in an area where they are there's abundant food for them. So they're carnivores. They're going to stick their stomach and be able to eat whatever they can. So favorite foods of theirs are anything that can't get away. So they will eat on dead stuff. They will eat mussels. They'll eat barnacles. And that's a kind of a slow process. So quite often when we see them during the low tide, they are eating. Ooh, and I spy, with my little well-trained naturalist eye, another blood star hanging out there. So sea stars are pretty hardy. They are well adapted to living life in this intertidal zone. So they do just fine out of the water. I think scientists, hundreds of years ago did experiments on them, and many of them can be out of the water for over 12 hours. Well, here our tide changes about every 6 hours or so. So the tide goes out, tide comes back in, and it'll take 6 hours to get all the way up to the top. So these animals at the lower tidal heights, they only have to be exposed for, an hour or 2, and they do just fine. The water temperature today is, on the first day of summer, is probably close to 55 range is our temperature max. Here's that wasted star again. Let's see what else we can find. I love exploring all the way out here because almost nobody comes out here. And so you feel like you're kind of in your own little world. Like, I can check out these 2 big red rock crabs in here. So Dan's asking what causes the disease for the sea stars. It's a densovirus that is a little bit puzzling to scientists because it's affecting 20 different species of sea stars up and down the west coast. And some sea stars are very highly affected by it, like our sunflower stars, the biggest sea stars in the world. They get about as big as a garbage can lid around. They have severely declined. Ochre stars, leather stars, mottled stars tend to be doing much better. And the blood stars seem hardly affected at all. Here's another purple ochre star. You just see those 2 feet sticking out. The waves are getting me. Sorry. Hold on a moment. I need to wipe off my phone. Okay. Job hazard for me here. Also hoping I don't break my ankle out here. These rocks are quite lightweight. They're really big, but they're light, and so I have to be careful not to really roll an ankle. Oh, here's a big blood star. This is about as big as they get. I'll put them in my hand here so you can get some perspective on how large that animal is. And you could see this one was just sort of hanging there, paralyzed until the tide returns. They've got a mouth in the center with tube feet all around them so they can navigate. And he'll be just fine here. We'll just tuck him kind of back under in the shade. I try to save them from the seagulls, although seagulls got to eat too, I suppose. Here's a really beautiful chitin tucked up under here. This is a lined chitin. See if I can get it to focus. It's kind of a little one. Really, really pretty. So the sea stars, their diet depends on the species, but really whatever they can catch. The blood stars tend to eat very small things, so they're eating detritus and kind of just the general organic material that's available here on the shore. So in this rocky habitat, as long as they can stay hidden and not get eaten, they're thriving. So, ooh, I'm slipping around. Okay, so I've reached about as far as I can walk this direction, at least with my phone in my hand, but I'll take a look at this cool rock structure here. It is really, really cool geology of this place. Maybe I can convince some of my geologist friends to come give us a talk about this beach and explain all what we're looking here at the rocks. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? All right, so on this rocky face, this is also good habitat for encrusting animals. So we see lots and lots and lots of barnacles. So each little circle that you see here, each little volcano is one animal. They're relatives of crabs. Their barnacles are crustaceans, which throws a lot of people off. In fact, I've had some people who told me they didn't even realize barnacles were living creatures. They thought they were just rock, encrusted rock, which, I mean, they're tough, they're hardy, they don't ever move. Once they land in a spot, they're stuck there forever. Here's a chitin, a very well camouflaged chitin, but he's not fooling me because I can see his oval structure here. And he's got these little bristles along the sides. Here's another one, another chitin hanging out here on the rocks. Here's another 2, 3 more. Ooh, there's another. Gosh, chitins everywhere. We got chitin here, chitin here, chitin here. And then up in this kind of crack, this is a really great spot for a chitin to be because it stays a little bit more moist. All right, let me take you up a little bit. Are you guys getting bored? You tired of walking the beach? I'm not. I'll keep going all day. Okay, maybe not all day, but gotta spend some time with my family, and they're I don't even see them. They're way down the beach. All right, I'm gonna navigate up a little bit, see if we can show you a little bit higher tidal zones and how things change as we change in our elevation. So I'm a good, I don't know, 10 feet taller than I was down there. We reached the zone of the fucus, the rockweed, this beautiful brown algae with these bumpy, swollen ends. I have heard it makes excellent sunburn protection. Whew. I don't know if you can hear that, but there are probably 100 crabs that just scuttled underneath these rocks. This is purple shore crab territory. And one of the reasons why I really love this, I don't think you guys can hear it. I hope you can, but it is just, if you can hear all this little scuttling. I'm gonna try to move a rock here and show you some of these crabs. And this is a nice light little rock, so I can flip that and show off these purple shore crabs. So purple shore crabs always, or I shouldn't say always, but just about 95% of the time are this purple color. So they have purple polka dots, and their legs don't have any little hairs on them. This guy's totally trying to hide. He's gonna tuck in here underneath my wrist. Here, we'll let him sink back down and feel safe. But the purple shore crabs, make sure my rock goes back right in place. Purple shore crabs tend to be higher in elevation. They're a little bit tougher. They don't need the wet ground like the green shore crabs prefer. So I usually, just by what animals are around, can figure out kind of what zone I'm in. Flip some of these other rocks. You can see more purple shore crabs. These are some females here. So I can look at the abdomen of this crab here and see that it's really wide as my thumbnail. That's where the full-grown crab, when she's mature, will hold her eggs, like that black clawed crab we saw earlier. And she'll hold on to them until they're ready to kind of hatch, and then they'll kind of go on their way. Gosh, there are thousands of crabs here. They are everywhere. This is really great habitat. When you have a lot of scavengers and a lot of opportunistic feeders, it's either because the area is very productive or it's in a state of kind of decay. And this is a productive state. There is lots and lots of food here for these little crabs. And so everybody's got, you know, every square inch is covered. Ooh, okay, this is a really cool find. So I mentioned about 95% of the purple shore crabs are purple. Well, I just found a rare kind of green one. I'm gonna see if I can safely move him out. Oh, where'd he go? He's really good at hiding. Every once in a while, we'll find kind of a color morph. And I've seen tomato soup colored ones, and I've seen kind of a green, kind of a really pretty seafoam green color. Also up in here in this tough zone, there's quite a number of snails and snail relatives. So we've got the limpets. So you can see these. They look like little mountains stuck to the rocks. And then there are periwinkles as well. So this is a checkered periwinkle snail. You can guess why they're named that. Really cool. You can see the operculum there. That's the trap door they use to close and keep some of their moisture in during the low tide. Really neat. All right, I'm gonna see if I can find just another cool kind of elusive creature that's found up here in the high intertidal zone, and it's called the red velvet mite. And they are so tiny. So we'll walk along and see if I can get a good spot to sit and look for one of those. Usually up on those big rocks ahead, I know where they are. So anywhere that gets wet regularly on the beach is enough to sustain some life. Now up here at the very top, we can see kind of the line of where stuff gets deposited. So we unfortunately got a little bit of trash and some driftwood and somebody's sweater maybe. This is a piece of driftwood that's got living barnacles still on it. So this will keep drifting. These are acorn barnacles, I think. And you can kind of always tell where the highest tide comes because things like moss, like we can see up in here, there's a little bit of moss along this wall. Moss does not tolerate salt water. And a lot of the lichens that are found on the rocks as well can't live if there's any salt. So that kind of gives you a clue about how high up the tides can come. All right, so there's also this great kind of surf algae up on here. A little bit of bright green. All right, I'm really proud of myself for not falling on my face so far and only dropping my phone once. That's pretty good for me. Here's, gosh, a really good close-up of the cool geology that's found here. There's just some interesting natural processes that have gone on to really shape this whole habitat. And I love it. I love exploring this beach, like just asking questions and trying to figure out what it is we're looking at here. Ooh, I found another one of those green purple shore crabs. But he's way back in there. I'm not gonna be able to get him. They're sneaky. Good at hiding, and this habitat is just perfect for them because they have sharp little toes and they can grab onto the rough algae and just scuttle away. And you'll notice the crabs always walk sideways because that's the way their leg joints work. So it's very rare for a crab to walk forwards or backwards. Kind of fun to observe them if you ever visit the beach, especially with little kids. It's fun to kind of turn over a small rock. You want to flip rocks about the size of your head, rocks that you can safely lift to put back. Because yes, you might have the muscles to really turn over one of these big, huge boulders, but getting it back in its correct place without harming the animals underneath it is really difficult when you're talking about the really big rocks. Here is a cool find. This is bull kelp. This right here is called the pneumaticist, and it's an air-filled bladder that keeps this floating. So there's some gas inside there. This long part right here is called the stipe, and it is attached to the holdfast. And it looks superficially like roots, but this algae doesn't do any transport of nutrients or water across its tissues. In fact, it doesn't even have tissues. And the anchor has really kind of broken loose. So this would be attached and kind of gripping onto a rock or boulder, something that would anchor this kelp. And then the long stipe grows and grows and grows. And this is a kelp that can get 100 feet or more in a season. Oh, here's a cool find. Okay, see these little kind of looks like grains of rice here? So cool. Those are the eggs of the dogwinkle snail. So those snails that the hermit crabs were in earlier, that's the snail, and their next generation. And they lay those eggs in the springtime. And sometimes you'll even catch just a huge breeding group of snails. They'll all gather together, and all the females will lay their eggs all along. All right, well, I can tell the tide is starting to come back in. I'll make my way back across. Oh, here's another chitin. You start to see those just perfectly oval patches of algae. They're almost always chitins. Really primitive animal that's very well adapted to life in the intertidal zone. They've hardly changed at all in like 200 million years. They lived before the time of the dinosaurs and outlived them through their mass extinction. So we're really kind of lucky to see chitins in our habitat. So now I've totally changed zones again. Oh, somebody's sunglasses. Bummer. All right, we'll take those off the beach with us and get them thrown away. The bummer about saltwater and losing your sunglasses is the screws usually rust. So even if you can find your sunglasses, unless you can rinse them off really well, you probably won't be able to salvage them. But maybe you can replace the screws. I'm going to check underneath this rock for my favorite anemone. Not my favorite species of anemone, but my favorite personal anemone that I know. I've been visiting this big anemone for a couple decades now. Is that big Christmas anemone? You can see it's kind of hanging down. It's got that red and green on the column and these beautiful pink tentacles. Super great. Oh, how long does the bull kelp live? Usually just a season. So there are some kelps that are persistent, but most of these algae are living only about a year or so. So cool. So Sherry asked, is it harmful to toss the sea stars in the water? It can be, mostly because you might be exposing them to predators where, a seagull could very easily grab a sea star that's not anchored down to the rocks very well. And since they are well adapted to living life here at the seashore, they'll do just fine. If they, oh yeah, like this guy right here. He's just out in the sun, hanging. Started to dry a little bit on the top. So what I would recommend, rather than moving this animal, who obviously chose to be here, grab your hands. They're never going to be mad about a little refreshing water poured on them. That'll help moisten up their gills a little bit. They'll never be upset about that. But they might be upset, if they had a brain, if you were to move them from this location. Usually when we have a nice negative tide, it's a series of low tides, because the tides are caused by the moon, and the moon's not just full and close to the earth for one day. It's full for, a couple of days in a row. And so the animals quite often will move lower and follow the water out, but they can't do it in one tidal cycle, so it might take them a few. All right, so we're back walking on the rocky section of the beach. Lots and lots of barnacles and chitins and rockweed. Here's a cool wash up. This is eel grass. So this is a true species of grass. It's a real plant. So we looked at that kelp earlier that had what looked like roots. This is a plant that has those actual roots. So these are roots that can pull up moisture. They can transport nutrients from the leaves down the stems to the roots. And they spread by runners, just like the grass in your yard does, which is really cool. All right, my friends, I think There you are. Hi. I think I'm going to kind of wrap this up. If you've got any last questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments. Again, we'd love it if you share this video. If you want to share our page, recommend it to friends, not just people local to us, but really share this message of stewardship around the world. We want to show off our awesome planet and kind of demonstrate why it's worthy of protecting. If you want to go a step further, of course, we'd love to have you join our Steward Club. That is our kind of membership program. Information about that is on our website. And then if you appreciate the video, if you loved it, if you want to support us and help us keep giving you this fun programming, we appreciate donations. We're a nonprofit organization. Donations are really what get us by. So if you would like to do that, again, you can find that on our website as well. But a share, a like, a comment, a review, all of those things help us to keep delivering awesome programming like this. So I'm going to try to, you guys didn't know what my face looked like as I walk across the thing because I had my camera flipped around the whole way. But I'm going to try to safely get off the beach without slipping and falling. And thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's fun to explore the beach and have people tune in and see what I love about the beach too. So if you loved it, share it, subscribe. We'll throw this up on our YouTube page, so don't forget to subscribe to that so you can see those notifications when we do this again. Like our page, and then you'll get notified that we're going live again. So thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Learn, have fun, and we'll talk to you and hopefully see you in person soon.